Hey everyone, this is Walter, and I'm back here to talk about one of my occasional subjects, Lucas Werner. Lucas is a sex pest, a nice guy, a neckbeard, all the things I cover rolled into one. He's best known for the time he hit on a young barista and creeped her out so much he got banned from Starbucks. But he's like this all the time. Let's get started with Intellectual Lucas is back. If you didn't see my last video, I'll try to remember to link to it in the description, but Lucas was recently catfished by someone posing as a young woman with severe intellectual disabilities. We even got to hear him tell her to delete her archives. But anyway, I think Lucas was feeling like a fool for falling for such an obvious catfish again, because he's trying his intellectual persona again. Just listen to some of this crap. Calling AI art useless is inherently classist to the poor people that want to get ahead and can't afford it without AI art. Bigot behavior. You should check your class privilege. One poor person who does art, making another poor person suffer without art, is the behavior of a class traitor. There's room for human-generated art, sure, but how are people at the poverty line supposed to get ahead when human-generated art by another person who wants to exploit others is expensive? So only people at certain economic levels should be able to afford artistic creations? Class struggle is a struggle against bigotry. All art generators operate freely, giving equal treatment to the impoverished who desire to create ideas around ideas they can afford, which largely means free art. Free good-looking art. Maybe you should rally for a living wage, start a union, go on strike and protest the rich always having the best access, while poor people struggle to bring their ideas to life without AI helping. Maybe a deeper struggle is for a universal basic income if you're going to protest for anything. People already pay for Lucas to exist, of course. I've never heard it before, but I already hate the term human-generated art. I'd prefer to just call it art. I think he's defending using AI to create his latest board game, Realm of the Round, which I honestly don't care to criticize, but someone must have. Love how the Republican go-to insult is to call you gay. Like they're perpetually at the intellectual level of a 7th grader and fuck the same sex behind closed doors, especially the men. He says it like he thinks an intellectual talks, but really at the end of the day he's just saying, "You called me gay? No, you're gay." Really lighting the world on fire with that roast. There's nothing wrong with being a skinny guy who loves fat women. But why don't we see fat men being loved unless he has a fat wallet? I don't even know what to tell you, Lucas. Women are looking for at least one positive trait in men, and you just don't have one. Dating apps seem to attract superficiality over genuineness. People are waking up to this fact. That's why they're leaving those sites behind. The failure rate is alarming to an increasing demographic. Either you get no response, or you get douchey/bitchy responses, and no one wants to hear the snippiness. Man, I wish I could see his dating app profile. But this might just be the kind of response you get when you're hitting on women half your age that are more attractive than you've ever been. Women love Jack from Titanic, but wouldn't date Jack. They respect Rose, but they don't act like Rose. Does Lucas identify with Jack from Titanic just because he's poor? But he works, and also he's attractive. Nothing like Lucas. But now we're going to hear some real deep 14-year-old shit. If you see the core, or mystique, of a person, you see what could be deigned a soul. And if you see that core of a person, you're looking in the wrong place if you look anywhere else in who you try to love. I've shown you who I am to the core. My dating choices have shown that I see the core of a person, but I fear a large number of you who are unhappy don't see the core of a person and continue with superficiality because you think a veneer is more than a paint droplet deep, not seeing this is the reason for your discontent in matters of the romantic. I really don't know what possesses a man who's 45 with 18 months of dating experience to give everyone advice on it so often. Also, deigned is most certainly not the word he was looking for here. Usually the fat guy gets hit on by a fat chick that likes him, otherwise he never knows he's appreciated by a woman. But why don't you get over your weightism, other than you were brainwashed? It may be beneficial to consider dating me specifically. I am not expressing a desire to be overweight. I engage in daily walks and appear to maintain a consistent weight, which is a positive aspect. I possess culinary skills. I am willing to perform household chores. I am not unattractive. I do not cheat. While I have a number of friends within the Gen Z demographic to choose from, they are aware of my stance on long-distance relationships. I am an attentive listener and a thoughtful individual. How to please a woman of high caliber. He's not expressing a desire to be overweight, so he's not fat on purpose. I'm not sure if that counts for anything. Oh wait, actually here's where the complaints about the AI come from. His card game that not only uses AI art, but also basically uses AI to make the entire game for him. Jesus Christ. Alternate timeline, anarcho-communist present. I'm designing a card and token game centered around my idea, leveraging AI to shape the behavior of each card and the visual aesthetic, informed by my creative direction. The cards incorporate a symbolic framework that aligns with my perspective, as I have intentionally defined the symbolic meanings. God, it kind of reminds me of the concept art from the Line project in Saudi Arabia, but it's somehow even more fantastical looking. I have no idea how anarchy would lead society to advance more quickly. That doesn't sound right to me. Dumb rednecks probably fuck the fish's mouth in their profile picture. I think this post happened because he was making edgy posts about Charlie Kirk. Lucas has a history of using people's deaths to try to get attention. You don't date broke guys? That's fine. I don't date classist, money-worshipping bigot idiots. Yeah, but the reason you don't date them is because they don't want to date you, not the other way around. Feel free to talk on my posts, for or against, but as soon as you jump to name-calling, you will have crossed my tolerance threshold and will be blocked. Alpha male somehow translates to absolute piece of shit. Yeah, stopped clock is correct twice a day and all that. Generation Z are largely favorable towards socialism, as they ride around with guys with good money, which seems to negate the will of the proletariat to no end, while this hypocrisy continues. I'll buy you steak on our first date if you want. I'll probably even buy you a great dinner on all our dates. You really should be licking your lips, ladies. I know the steak is one of his oldest schemes, but how can he even offer it right now when he supposedly has like $30 a month to spend? I would never abuse you, girl. I don't know why you wouldn't date me, unless you were some kind of bigot, like a classist, weightist, ableist, or ageist. But Gen Z is supposedly against prejudice. I'm just waiting on you to come around. Yeah, if someone says something like I would never abuse you, all that means is that they're already thinking about the possibility. Notice how they didn't say Generation Z women? You're not going to find Generation Z women in droves in a church, unless they're unattractive looking or stupid. Fucking annoying clowns. What does being attractive have to do with whether or not you go to church anyway? I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't favor capitalism at all. Are you nuts? I'm not even a socialist, so much as someone who'd prefer a socialist dictatorship over the capitalist dictatorship of the duopoly in which we live, unless you're in a handful of other countries I can't go to without money. But I'd rather stay here, even if just as a stepping stone. That isn't to say I'm a socialist, as much as someone who agrees that a moneyless, classless, stateless society would be better given the circumstances that lead to capitalism being felt. In an anarcho-communist society, we call ourselves that because we don't remember reading Marx and thinking dictatorship of the proletariat means one guy in charge. It means all of us are in charge. We reject authoritarianism, so the only other option is seemingly libertarian socialism, leading me right to the core of the matter, anarcho-communism. I imagine this happening in a hypothetical scenario where the government falls and there is suddenly no way to pay the police and riots happen for a couple weeks. A gift society develops to quell the crowds. Suddenly there's communal solar arrays, mutual care clinics, collective feasting, and other such shit. Hypothetically. This is so stupid, but Lucas thinks that if there are riots, people will just start working for free. Because people in situations like that often do acts of charity. He's often using the Seattle Autonomous Zone to come up with this somehow. He also wrote like this big-ass fanfic about this happening where his main character was an obvious proxy for him, named Oliver Dangle. I almost made a video about it, but then I decided it was stupid and not worth doing. And oh god, this next one. Those street interviews with Gen Z women interviewing the most misogynistic Gen Z guys on the planet both gives me hope and hopelessness for the women in this species, while losing hope in a lot of young men with these outdated views, even though they're under 30 in 2025. Fuck, I hate the length of intellectual Lucas's sentences sometimes. But Lucas always hates younger men. They're the competition for him. Why is there this split between young women and young men? It still begs another question. Who's fucking all these dumbass guys? These sexist dudes are still fucking and being relationshiped. You hate them and tolerate hate. Somebody has to be forgiving this type of behavior. It's like watching women give up to tolerate this type of guy after just watching an hour of you interviewing them. Look, I know young guys who don't act this way, and still they're being denied. What the fuck is with the generation, quick to both point out and deplatform hate, while still tolerating hate enough to hate fuck and sleep with the enemy? Goofy fucks. Deny them sex if you want them to change. Duh. Lucas is not very experienced in relationships, so hate fucking is one of the concepts that he seems to understand least. He says all sorts of stupid shit about that word that doesn't really apply. We should replace all Gen Z workers with AI, so this generation rises up even further for their rights. Great plan from the oligarchs might be to fire exactly everyone for this reason, so we might move along to a point where people can pursue their passions under a basic income that doesn't leave 99% of humanity economically stranded when the robots take over, which is probably inevitable. AI could replace you going to your job, but also, AI could pave the way for free money. AI sure has fucked up my job, hasn't it? YouTube sucks now. But yeah, I guess Gen Z is just lazy. It's not that rent is twice it was when I was 20. No, they just need another kick in the ass, I guess. I might try to date a trans woman one day. Maybe they are less bigoted. I just don't want to be called gay for it. I'm sick of bigots, and just want to be loved. This one is weird to me considering his supposed requirement to have kids. He might just be virtue signaling. Like, I know this isn't virtuous in reality, but he really thinks it is. I would not be opposed to meeting up with any fans, or any people who would be interested in hanging out with me. If you're in Spokane this Saturday, I might go out for some food. I could use some help getting a girlfriend in real life. I'm sure everyone is aware, but when you follow lolcows, you should never touch the poop and go meet them. You might just become one of them. If the young male suicide rate is skyrocketing, and the conservative population of young men seems to be growing, it doesn't take a genius to figure out why Gen Z is having less sex than previous generations. Who they gonna fuck? Some Nick Fuentes, woman hater ass? Picture me with Pam Bondi. Every day we'd be screaming at each other. I'm really glad I don't sit around thinking up fan fiction about being married to political figures. The universe was a probability field of energy before the Big Bang that always existed. Think about it. The universe is expanding faster than light, which means, according to general relativity, the universe expands backwards in time, probably triggering the Big Bang in an eternal cycle. Matter and energy cannot be created. Matter and energy cannot be destroyed. That's all there is. Energy moving slowly is matter. Matter moving fast is energy. I feel like a goddamn broken record at this point, but the universe expanding faster than light does not mean any matter is actually moving faster than light. That is simply impossible, Lucas. And why does he capitalize Big Bang like it's the name of God or something? I wanted Big Bang Theory to be more about science, and less like Friends for dorks sitting around eating, talking about relationships, and the boring parts of science even scientists don't discuss out of fear of provoking a yawn fest. Yeah, it's a good thing they didn't market it toward normies or anything. What the fuck? Now one final intellectual post on how he isn't an incel. Wouldn't an incel hate women? I think of the patriarchy as a symptom of capitalism. I'd replace this system with anarcho-communism, but I have no idea how it should start. Only that it could start if there was no government, which would shut down the corporate sector. But I also toy with this idea in my head that it could be voted into place by rearranging the system from a system of aristocrats and parties to everyone else that isn't communism, because it doesn't begin with a socialist state, and it isn't anarchism, because there's order. Not with favor or disfavor, a system that starts by accident. See it happening. When we develop into a gift society instead of a control society, that would free the women to have more freedom in their daily lives, and everyone else. Honestly, because money would be irrelevant in a system without a state to regulate it. People would live in self-sustaining small communities, which would also free everyone through gift-giving and barter, unlike socialism or capitalism. Why is Lucas so intent on tearing down the comfortable society that we've built? In the Oliver Dangle story, he actually goes around tearing up the infrastructure to build his own solar array. I shit you not. Anyway, it's about all the time I have for you today. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you have something to say about Lucas, or intellectual Lucas, or my content, let me hear it in the comments. I'll be reading them while the video's new. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more Reddit and sometimes lolcow content. Big thanks finally to my amazing patrons who help by supporting me more directly over on Patreon. It really helps me out. This is video number 5 this month, half my monthly goal, so I should be back soon when I find something I want to talk about. Have a great day, everyone, and maybe young trans women should avoid Lucas as well.